Hello, this is Dr. Jason Munsell. It is about 2 o'clock, June 22nd, 2017, second day of summer. Shaved a little bit off because it was getting yucky. There's, you always sort of have to trim stuff when you find like Cheetos in it, like Hermione's bags, like, delicious. Actually, Cheetos, not Cheetos, but chips, random chips and condiments. In any case, what I'm going to offer you is some new stuff. Well, not new, it's extra stuff from this book right here. If you have paid attention to the syllabus, you sort of know that yesterday and today was about not a chapter in our book, but extra stuff and sort of reiterating some stuff. So hopefully the handout that I put on Casey yesterday is going to help you out tremendously as you are working toward this advocacy plan that again is due on Saturday. And then hopefully some of the stuff that I say today will also be very, very helpful. We shall see. So, first, I love me some Angelina Grimke. That's learn more soon. That's her in her younger years. That's later on. But she's awesome. Okay. So let's make the rhetorical package great again. Remember at the very beginning of class, I was talking about, or the course, I was talking about issues of techne and praxis. And so, you know, in a lot of ways, we're thinking of the rhetorical package itself as techne. We always need to consider a specific message for specific target audiences, decide on the best rhetorical strategies to get that message across to a specific audience in light of our goal, in light of the situation. So a lot of this stuff that you're doing for the rhetorical packages for each of these avenues of advocacy is basic, you know, COM 100 stuff or basic public speaking stuff or whatever speaking class that you might have taken. It's all about being contextually savvy and audience savvy. So remember, and Cicero talked about this as well. Cicero was all about, you know, knowing your audience and changing the style of your discourse and everything like that for your audience. So again, the rhetorical package is this sort of theoretical framework, techne again, rhetorical techne, if you want to call it that, that we are taking to these four avenues of advocacy. Rhetorical package. If you learn nothing else in this entire class, rhetorical package. Okay. Now remember, when we're thinking about the rhetorical package, we are thinking about lots of different things, obviously. Again, what is my message? Who is my audience? What is my rhetorical strategy? What's my goal? What's the situation? Hopefully you have that memorized by now. So the message. We need to send a very specific message to folks, right? And there's lots of things to think about when we think about what message we want to send to folks. Obviously, we have to come up with a message. But, you know, what is it that, you know, McDonald's is bad because of X, Y, and Z, or is it because, you know, dogs, there are too many, you know, stray dogs or whatever. Lots of things, but you have to think about what do you really want to get across. And here are some very specific things that Jason says, Dr. Del Gandio says in this particular book. You want to be clear, obviously. You want to make sure your message gets across. So things to think about when you're, it's simple stuff, but it's good. Things to think about when you're crafting your message for these plans. What am I trying to say? What do I really want to say? What is the main point that I'm trying to get across? Am I clear about my own message? Am I clear what I really want to say? Do I think my message will be clear to the audience? Or if I'm confused, they're going to be confused. Am I staying on point throughout my, when I'm speaking, or when I'm writing, or when I'm doing whatever? I need to be clear. Do I stay on point? Don't want to get off on tangents. Anytime you create a message, you want it to be organized well, and obviously, a lot of folks have talked about introduction, body, and conclusion. That's sort of the way that we organize things. But remember, I have, for the most part, you can call it a rhetorical strategy, or part of the message is up to you, but because these things blur into one another, but they're coming to get me. But in any case, here, this iron zone. I've given you the motivated sequence sort of as an organizational structure to structure your messages, or your overall message. But that's something to think about. Do some outlining. That's what Jason indicates. Yeah, I mean, you can create your own outline, but these are sort of what the plan is meant to do. It's sort of an outline in and of itself. But, when you're trying to create the YouTube speech or whatever, if you want to create a full outline, you certainly can do that. I mean, it's not required. You don't just turn it in, but if you want to do that, super cool. How long do you want your message to be? I mean, it always depends. It's got to be manageable. We live in a world where less is more, right? If somebody even sees that, I mean, you have to watch these lectures, but if somebody sees something and that it's 20 minutes, that's a long time. What can short and sweet, I think, is sort of, and catchy is sort of the thing to think about, I think. But then, whatever, as you're thinking about all this type of stuff, you're thinking about, okay, as I'm designing my message and designing all this stuff, you got to refine it. Here are some things to think about when you're refining the message that you want to get across. Try to articulate it in one sentence. Can I capture my message in one sentence? Can I then explain it in a full paragraph? Because the message needs explanation. Be prepared for extended conversation. If somebody, because that's part of the research that I've been telling you that you need to do, so you need to know about your issue. If somebody, what happens if somebody asks you questions or wants to correspond with you about such and such issue? You need to know it. And then this is important, sort of, but he says we want to turn our message into a catchy soundbite. And we've seen this before in the chapters in this particular book. I'm not asking you to come up with a slogan, but you can. Give Plarn a chance. I don't know. But, McDonald's, I'm not loving it. Whatever. So, lots of sort of very specific things to think about when you're thinking about the message part of the rhetorical package. A lot of no-brainer stuff, but, What about the audience? In this book, there's lots of different things to think about, but the idea is basically who am I out there trying to persuade, trying to advocate to? My message is going to be different to college students, if I'm targeting college students, than if I'm targeting, folks who are about to retire. Different generations have different sort of points of view, even though that in itself is sort of stereotypical. So all this is sort of audience analysis stuff. So, we want to analyze our audience, think about, and we don't have to necessarily, do surveys or anything like that, but think in terms of who's out there. Think in terms of demographics, issues of political affiliations, gender, race, sexual orientation, economic status, cultural background, education level, regional background. I like this. You don't have to go crazy, but realize that details do matter. You want to connect with people. Again, I've talked about this sense of identification, but you can't really connect with them if you don't know who they are. And again, you won't know the details per se. Just sort of generalize. I think it would be smart to, try to reach these folks this way instead of this way over here. Even as it's stereotypical, because all generalizations really are products of our mind. We live in a world of very specifics, but we create, like, the millennials think this way. It depends. Gen Xers think this way, or Gen Xers are cool. Now, that's true. But in any case, okay, some of the stuff in this book, I'm going to make sure that I remember, is on page 64. By the way, I think I saved this someplace in here. If you want to go get this book on Amazon or something like that, it's a pretty good book. I mean, it goes into a little bit more detail about things here and there. But a lot of this stuff is sort of just a not regurgitation, but sort of a addendum to things that are already in chapter 2. But he says, okay, choose a target audience, decide upon their level of knowledge, what might they or not know, personalize the issues. That's very important. You want to personalize the issue, even though, like, I don't know who the hell is out there on YouTube, but still, you want to think about reaching a particular audience that might be invested in what you're trying to do. Adjust your level of radicalism. He talks about radicalism a lot in this book because it's called Rhetoric for Radicals. Again, I'm not really keen on that particular word, but sometimes folks like radical messages. Oh yeah, I'll do that. But usually, and as we've talked about previously, you don't want to be too anti whatever. Don't go crazy. And, always build common ground. I can't say that enough. Think about your audience. What do we have in common? You can't, if you're asking for, I would really like you to donate money to this, you can't assume that people have a lot of money to donate. I mean, depending on the situation, you got to think about things like that. So, we've got the message. We got to make sure it's clear and well organized in a strategic way and all that type of stuff. Of course, we have to understand the audience and everything like that, because that impacts how we create the message. All this sort of impacts each other, and we have to think about our goal. This is sort of like the specific purpose, if you remember from COM 100, if you took that or whatever. And again, here's where I say you can buy it on Amazon. Basically, and this is very similar to some of the stuff that I said when we were talking about the message, try to sort of establish your goal in one sentence. What do you really want your audience to do? And that's, the message sort of influenced them to do that, hopefully. Do you want them to not eat at McDonald's? Do you want them to eat this instead of this over here? Do you want them to go to a protest? Do you want them to support this cause versus whatever? Do you want them to learn more about buying a home? It's just you got to figure out what you want, and then think about, obviously, the relationship to your message, audience, strategy, situation. Obviously, how given your audience and all this type of stuff, and what you can do within the confines of the process of advocacy. What are your goals? For instance, your goal can't be, I'm going to create world peace, but maybe swirl peas. I'd love that. But I mean, I'm all about taking sort of baby steps with advocacy. Inch by inch, it's a cinch. You're not gonna, there's a lot of problems in our society, but if we, it's always a movement forward. Sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward, 3 steps, I don't know, something like that. But in any case, make sure you're thinking about the entire package to receive your goals. One thing that he does say, Jason, here, is that try to judge if you're if what you did as your strategy worked or did not. I don't know exactly how you would do that, but for instance, if you're trying to get people to go to a march